I got a couple things I want to run through today. I do want to start off with the superstar in DeAndre Yedlin and the trade that is happening right now, or just happened, Miami to Cincy. It's a big deal. I also want to talk about the GOAT. We got to discuss him. Is it different? Is he different? Is he different than Beckham? Is he different than the superstars that have come before him? Also, they're putting up crazy numbers. They thrashed Orlando. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about the Champions Cup, because I think it is interesting. The Champions Cup, newly branded, rebranded Champions League. MLS is having some success. They got another, I think there's eight MLS clubs in the round of 16, which is a big deal for us. And then I want to talk about maybe some pleasant surprises and some disappointments in the league. We're 2 weeks in. I know it's a small sample size, but it is enough where we can maybe see some things that we might see in the future, and I want to get your perspective. So let's dive right in.
What's the toughest part about being a journeyman in a new city?
Well, Gordo, you know this as well as I do. Being a journeyman in a new city or a city that you're staying in is always difficult. The uncertainty of the future. Are you going to stay? Are you going to go somewhere else? Back in 2020 with Nashville SC, when we had a brand new team, everyone coming to a new city, there was only one person that we trusted to get our real estate needs done, and that's Erin Mishu with Fikes Realty Group. She made everything perfect, flawless, seamless. We had absolutely no issues getting into our house here in Nashville, and all my teammates felt the same way. You can check Erin out at majorleague-realestate.com.
All right. Here we are back again. Major League Journeyman in the house. Matthew McConaughey not in attendance. I think that they are working on a blueprint on how to put together the rest of their season, 2 games in. Not looking great for the Austin side, but we will get there. I do have Dax McCarty, fresh off of a bye weekend, completely recharged, re-energized, reinvigorated. New deal also.
Yeah, none of you guys said anything about it off camera. Why not?
Well, we were waiting for this moment to call spotlight to it, how handsome you look, and just, also point out that Gordo still has a mustache, which I commend 110%, Gordo. I'm loving what you're doing right now. Are you recognizing yourself in the mirror? Yes or no?
No, and that's the point. Really, I needed
anything to be someone else.
Yeah, I think my wife needed a change, so I'm testing out that theory. How much can I not look like myself, and maybe I'll get a little love at home?
Spicing it up. Ever since Gordo introduced the mustache to the pod, I was like, all right, I'm getting a little disheveled here. I need to clean it up. So I feel good. I feel younger.
Yeah.
Remains to be seen.
You look younger, except to all the 17-year-olds on your roster. You still look like a dirty old man, dude. You are still dated.
Remains to be seen if I feel younger and the legs feel younger on the field. But man, we had the bye week, obviously, and we had a spirited inner squad on Saturday, which was
love those.
Fantastic. Oh yeah.
Spirited.
Dude, you guys know how those get, man. They get
spicy.
There
get spicy.
There was some spice involved for sure, and it was good, man. Because I've told you guys how good of a team I think we have, and so sometimes stuff like that on like a bye week, especially so early in the season, I think it's great, man. You mix the teams up, and you throw an assistant coach the referee whistle, and you just watch.
Oh, and everybody is MFing him the whole time.
Oh, yeah.
Dude,
just like on the weekends with these replacement referees, it almost feels exactly the same.
I felt so bad for him because he started off great. He was making good calls, and then one iffy one, and it just going, man.
You give guys an opening, they're going to take it. Hey, Dax, why are we having bye weeks on week 2? Is this new or is this old?
This is normal.
This is normal, man. It sucks, but when you have 29 teams, someone's the odd man.
You got to fit them in somewhere.
All right.
I actually, Dex, I don't hate it. I think that what you're talking about, it really is difficult to get meaningful games in preseason. And you guys almost culminated the preseason with an actual meaningful game, right? The culmination of the preseason is your season opener because it's not at home. It's on the road against the Crew. The reality of you going in and getting a win in Columbus on a ring ceremony day, probably pretty challenging, but you do get to really kind of work out some of the kinks of preseason, come back in with a bye weekend and have the full complement of the squad, right? Because we also know that based on what Gordo's told us year in and year out, nobody takes care of themselves in preseason, or at least places the emphasis that they probably should on the preseason. But now you get almost like a restart. You feel, how do you feel coming into this week of training for Atlanta on the weekend coming up?
Yeah, I feel like last week was an excellent week of training. And then obviously you get more game tape and more game film on your opponents, which is awesome. And that's something, right? You're watching, we knew how Columbus was going to play, but you're watching preseason clips, right? You're trying to scavenge for anything you can find in terms of player personnel, in terms of, are they going to play a little bit differently? Is there going to be some nuance to the game that they didn't have last year? And then now, right, let's say we have New England coming up, right? We've got 3 or 4 games of New England now, of good film that we can watch, we can study, we can see, some subtle differences in what they're trying to do. They have a new coach in Caleb Porter. They've been in CONCACAF Champions Cup, which, we'll hit on a little bit later, but they have a midweek game, right? So how does that affect things? So I'm looking forward to this week of training. Obviously, for me, it's leading into our home opener at the Benz, which should be electric. I've only been a visitor there, and
it's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Opening day weekend in Atlanta is so much fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. It should be electric. And look, you're in week 3, right? We played 1 game, but I love the mentality of our group, man. Our coach, the message is it's a must-win game. Like we have to win at home, and it's our first game. We're setting the tone for what it's going to be like the rest of the year at the Benz. And I'm excited, man. My roommate in preseason was Brooks Lennon, and he was just like, dude, there's just something about being at the Benz that just like kind of transforms us, and like just so good. And so
it is a real feeling. It really is. I mean, you walk in that building and it is intimidating and like extra motivating at the same time. They are dually balanced. Hey, that's wild.
Let me ask a question, Dax. I'm looking at your schedule, and we're 1 game in. You already played Columbus, the reigning champs.
Yep.
And I'm looking, we got New England, and then you got Orlando, then you got Toronto, then you got Chicago. Should I keep going? I mean,
do you run it out? Are you going 33?
Are you going all 34 games? What are we doing here?
No, I'm just saying, just looking at it, right? I was just browsing to see who you guys played. I mean, is the MLS getting to a point to where you're looking at your schedule and you're like, well, I know there's never really been any easy games, but then, I mean, you just go in and every game means something. Like all 4 of those games, you guys are going to be competing against, or we'll get into it. I mean, you assume that those are going to be some of the top teams in the division. I mean, it's exciting. It's kind of exciting.
They're 6-pointers, man. And like, I think there was this, especially like you guys know how it was when you guys played. There's always this thing in the beginning of the season that it's like, meh, results, whatever. In the beginning of the season, who cares? Like we're working out the kinks.
Yeah, dude, Bruce Arena threw out the first 35% of the season every single year.
For sure.
I know.
Whatever. It's all
but
good.
you can't. The reality is you can't do that now. Like you can get hot in the summer and you can win 4 or 5 games in a row, and that would put you at the top of the conference. But I don't think that's the case anymore. I mean, you look at the consistency of the teams who have been at the top in the past, teams like Philly, teams like Cincy, and like they just don't really hit these lulls that teams used to go through, right? It used to be every team was up and down. Now it's like you need to start
There's a standard.
well if you're going to be in for a shout. And guess what? If you don't have a top 4 seed going into the playoffs, your chances of actually winning a championship drop significantly, significantly. So there are no easy weeks, Gordo. You said it yourself. I mean, I look at our schedule and you have to take it 1 week at a time, because New England is a good team that's had a tough start to the year. But if you overlook how much talent they have, they can beat you. So yeah, man, it's exciting, but it's also tough, man. It's challenging. It's an excitement level where I just want to get on the field. I just want to play, and I want to get that first win under our belt. And obviously, if you beat an interconference rival, that's a good start.
Yeah, for sure. You also said, Dax, Pineda tells you guys that it is a must-win game, right? Which I think it's your home opener. It's a must-win game. That's the expectation in Atlanta, which also, just listening to you say that, I actually believe that, which I know that there's probably 10 other coaches in the league that said the exact same thing that I know everyone in the room that just fell completely flat on, as in like, well, is it a must-win game? Because is that really our standard? Because I don't really know. But Atlanta has that. They've earned it.
It's our standard.
And they said it. And that's something that, you have to speak into existence, but you also have to act on it too. I'm hopeful for you guys. I think Atlanta holds a little special place in my heart, but you're about to experience it. It'll be a cool moment for you. One thing specifically in terms of interconference foes that I wanted to talk about is the DeAndre Yedlin trade. For me, I think massive trade. One of the more influential trades in recent memory that affects both clubs. And Gordo, I wanted to throw it to you and get your take from a Miami perspective. And then Dax, I'd like for you to talk through the Cincy perspective. So Gordo, take me through one, maybe how DeAndre Yedlin is feeling first and foremost as a player, but also why does Tata Martino make this move right now?
I don't know, man. It is interesting. I saw all these memes and clips of Yedlin in the huddle, and he's given like the team talk and Messi, and then they're pointing at like Alba and Messi and
Luis Suarez.
Yeah, and all that. And he's in there like hyping him up, right? I think I have enough respect for Tata to think that this is a strategic move to move Yedlin. He wants something different from that position, whatever it is. He may want to free up some cap space. I'm not too up to date on what, how much of that cap space he's using, but it's a tactical move. And when you make a trade in the MLS, you have to trade somebody with value. So you have to trade, or you have to pick. It's like that happy medium. It's like, how much am I willing to give up? Because I have to give up something for something, right? And Yedlin's maybe he even liked Yedlin on his team, but he's like, okay, I can live with getting rid of him and getting something for him to clear some space or clear a position spot or roster spot for somebody that I can plug in. So, I mean, I think I don't think it's a negative on Yedlin. I'm going to go ahead and just say that. I think it's strictly a MLS move that they have to move a player with value, and they're going to do that. And he just happened to be that guy. But I think it's good. I think Tata knows that he doesn't have the team that he wants, even though they're getting results. I mean, we can talk about this result later. I don't know if you want to get into it now. But
let's stick with Yedlin right now, but you're spot on. I mean, it's not like they're short on results right now. That's for sure.
They're not. And so he's going to make moves, and he's going to keep molding this team. And so I think that's a long-winded answer for a very simple answer. It's just value. It's a value trade. And
this is simple. This is a salary dump.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Dax.
Salary dump, and it's either setting up another move.
It's absolutely setting up.
Or it's setting up a move that's external, but also internal. You have Julian Gressel, who, if Tata is going to play the way that I think he eventually wants to play with, right? If you play, let's say, a 4-3-3, but you can drop Busquets back to be a pseudo center back in build-up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
DeAndre Yedlin, first of all, I played with him in a few national team games. I've been a big fan of his for a very long time. He's a very good player. He's played at a very high level.
Dude, and he's playing well for Miami.
He's a great player. One of his strengths, or let me rephrase, I'd say something that you would probably not count as one of his strengths is being a highly effective, efficient passer of the ball when a team is sitting deep on you. And
also known as a weakness.
Correct. Trying to be nice here. But yeah, I think one of the weaker parts of his game is that his technical proficiency and his accuracy when they're pinning teams deep, he's not as accurate as a Julian Gressel is. And that's just fact, right? I think DeAndre brings a ton to the table, but Miami's going to have a lot of the ball camped out in the opposition's defending half for a long time, for a lot of the game. And that's clearly a spot that Tata identified as, I think DeAndre Yedlin's a great player, but he's not my guy. I didn't bring him in. He's on a lot of money for a fullback in MLS. And that's a position where We have a ready-made replacement in Gressel right away. And there's also going to probably be another move. I mean, we don't have any inside info here on the pod, at least not that I'm aware of, but that signals to me they're bringing someone else in, right? Yeah. And so DeAndre, I think he obviously depends on your outlook in life, if you think it's an upgrade or a downgrade in city. But I do think he gets to go to a fantastic team with a great coach who plays in a similar formation to where he can thrive as a proper wingback, right? Yeah. So I look at it from Cincy's perspective, and I think if you don't think Alvis Powell is the answer at right wingback, which I think he's probably not, then you're looking at
great piece to have on your team. Sure. Probably not, definitely not an every game starter.
You're looking at an Arias replacement. Right. And Arias was a great player. He was a great pickup from Cincinnati. I think they probably couldn't agree on a new deal, on a new contract, probably wanted more money. I'm not really sure. But you look at picking up DeAndre Yedlin, a guy who knows the league, a guy who Pat Noonan's probably very comfortable with, who can play in that formation pretty easily. He's a winner, right? He's playing at a high level. To me, it makes too much sense. Very, very strange trade number, though. Very specific amount of GAM.
What is it, 142,000 in GAM?
172,789 or something like that. Like, unbelievably specific to the dollar amount. And it's funny because I can just imagine Chris Henderson and Chris Albright trying to get this deal done and, like, kind of being like, all right, like, what works for you perfectly so we can fit it under our cap, but then it's not going to break the bank on the other side. And I'm thinking, like, they're just... I don't know. I'm surprised that another team didn't come in with a better, bigger offer for Yedlin.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this I think is all about timing, right? So I wonder who Miami is bringing in, because Tata's got
have you seen the rumors?
How many cards does he have up his sleeve?
Well, have you guys heard the rumor?
No, who's the rumor?
There's Sergi Roberto rumors coming out of Barcelona.
There you go. I mean, what does he do? He picks up the phone and he says, "Hey, you want to come play with Messi and friends?" And it's a yes. And here's the interesting part of the roster construction. Like, I do think that this is a really short-term decision, but there's a lot of things at play right now because, one, whoever they bring in, they could sign them to essentially, nothing and pad all of it with bonuses, which don't hit your cap until next year. And then next year, when MLS completely redoes the cap structure and all the league rules. Oh, how about this? You're playing with a free DP. I mean, these guys, like, they've been around the block. So that one is interesting. Also, DeAndre Yedlin, what a great piece for Cincy to add from an experienced player, from a player who has now had just seen really high-level championship expectations and environment in Tata Martino and Messi and Suarez and all these guys, right? European experience, MLS experience, and also somebody that will take a trade second game into the season completely in stride and just jump into MC Cincy's starting lineup and cruise. I mean,
wonder, Gargs, not to interrupt you, I wonder how much say, if any, DeAndre actually had in this, and if they were kind of going. Because think about it, if you're Miami,
not a lot.
But if you're Miami, think about this: if you're Miami, can you get a better offer from somewhere else in MLS than 172,000 in GAM? Of course you can. For a full U.S. international who's not...
But right now.
I'm just saying, you can get a better offer from some team, right? And then think about, they're a direct rival of Inter Miami. They'll be fighting for the top of the East. So for me, I'm thinking, hey, maybe you go to DeAndre and you say, look, we have to move you, right? Here are the places.
Here's your three options.
Sure. What place would you prefer? And then he picks the best team. I don't know. I'm just saying, it's not outside the realm of possibility.
No, it's not outside, because he is their captain, right? I mean, he's still wearing the armband, or was wearing the armband in Miami. There's definitely a level of respect between him and probably Hendo.
That's my point.
So I don't see it's completely out of the realm of possibilities. I could see that, but I don't know. I mean, at this, like, this is a move that probably has to get done, and has to get done right this second, so that they can fit in whoever it is that they've already probably agreed to terms with.
Right.
And this is also a move that signifies to me that, hey, we got 1 or 2 years left with Messi. We're going all in.
Yeah,
we're gonna,
100%.
it's so, I mean, we know that, right? I mean, we know how it works, but this signifies it for me and solidifies it is they're gonna do everything they can, bend any rule, like you said, Gargs, with the salary cap to get as many players as they can. They'll figure it out later.
And I mean, this is probably just Hendo picking up the phone and calling Albright and being like, "Hey, how much GAM coins you got stuck in those couch cushions over there in Cincy?" And he's like, "Oh, you know what? Let me call Kyle McCarthy and Hunter Freeman. How much we got? Well, we have $179,482.15."
Yeah, so
I did,
and not a nickel more. Yeah, I did think it was also cool that The Athletic gave those two dudes a shout out. Kyle McCarthy, who has been Chris Albright's kind of like right-hand man in terms of capologist for a while. And also Hunter Freeman, that's been in Cincinnati for a really long time and working his way up from the USL days and climbing that ladder, and has gotten, at this point, probably a shout out and a little bit of a respect for the work that he does on a day-to-day basis. So that was good too. It also goes back to Chris Albright, man, and the job that he's doing in Cincinnati in just building out a real team. And I'm talking about on the staff side. Like you mentioned, going to Pat Noonan, who's now arguably one of the best top 5 coaches in the league. You got a staff underneath him that's got former head coaching experience. He's now naming 2 guys that are essentially probably heir apparents to be GMs in this league next. It seems like it's one after another for FC Cincy, and they're storming forward, man. You guys mentioned Messi, the GOAT, which we've talked a ton about, but I wanted to share a question that I got asked. I went to the St. Louis game, so I was chatting with a bunch of people, and this came from, a novice soccer fan, but he did ask, and it made me think, it made me pause, because he was like, doesn't MLS do this? Like, haven't they done this before? As in brought in, the aging superstar and gotten success out of him. And now it's, which one is it? Is Messi that good, or is the league that bad? And I started to answer the question, and then I stopped myself because it does tend to go in circles. But I wanted to get your guys' opinion if it feels different to you. Like, is this different? Is this different than Beckham and Zlatan and Henry and Gerrard, or is it the exact same thing? I know that for me, this feels different. It does feel different, and I have some ideas why. But Dax, you're the only one that's actually seen probably every single one of those people in person on the field, which now includes Messi. Does this feel different to you? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Why does this feel different?
There's a difference between superstar, who is going to be remembered for many, many years as the great player that they were, which is what those guys are that you just described. Schweinsteiger, Henry, Zlatan, Pirlo, Villa, Lampard, Gerrard. Superstars. Guys who should be remembered forever for their contributions to the game.
All-time best 11s in soccer.
All-time greats. All-time greats.
Sure.
Awesome players. We're talking about the greatest player to ever live, in my opinion. The greatest player to ever put on boots, the greatest player to ever touch a soccer ball, someone who transcends sports more so, I think, than almost any athlete ever. Because if you want to talk about U.S. sports, you have your Tiger Woodses, your Michael Jordans, right? You have your Wayne Gretzky's. Like, those guys are untouchable in American sports, but they also transcended the game over to other countries. We're talking about the biggest sport in the world and the best player that's ever lived. There's no chance that people talk about MLS in the Beckham era, which was fantastic for MLS at the time. There's no chance that people talk about that era the same way they do about this era with Messi right now. And it's because of all the strides that MLS has made. When Beckham came into MLS, how many teams were there? 14? 16?
2007?
07, 14, 16 teams?
Yeah.
Maybe?
12 to 14, yeah.
A lot of eyeballs on it. Great. Glitz, glamour, Hollywood. Talking about 29 teams now. We're talking about $1 billion, right, streaming rights TV deal where like we've never seen anything like it. We're talking about
streaming globally. Yep.
We're talking about a global audience that has eyes on MLS now because of Messi. So yes, it feels different. It is different. There's really nothing else to say about it. I mean, it remains to be seen if Messi, and look, Messi is going to win plenty of games in MLS. I think it remains to be seen if this project is going to be successful as far as winning trophies go. They've already got one in Leagues Cup. That's great. You guys know as well as I do, end of the season, playoffs, MLS Cup. We'll see if the guys, and look, it's an interesting experiment because when Beckham and these other guys came in, they surrounded them with young legs. There was a good balance on the roster. Miami, the core of their team and their best players, they're aging guys, right? And so it is a very, very interesting experiment if these otherworldly superstars can come in together. They've all played together before. Luis Suarez basically on one leg, who looked absolutely fantastic, obviously, this past weekend. But it's an interesting thing to see if they're going to be able to hold up over the grind of a full season. And let's not forget, Messi still has Argentina commitments. So he's not just playing MLS games. He's not playing just playing CCC and all these other games. He's playing Argentina games, Copa America, like World Cup qualifying. Like, this is, for a 36-year-old, 37-year-old, this is real challenging stuff. And so it'll be interesting how it plays out.
You know, I mean, that's all really good perspective. Gordo, you and I have played against 99% of the superstars outside of the GOAT that is Messi. Right now, we just get to watch Messi and critique the players that he makes look silly. Now, when I played against these guys, they would never make me look silly, and they never made you look silly. However, I think that my vantage point now is that Messi is still playing better than any of those guys that have been mentioned. And I think that there's a number of reasons for that, but I wanted to get your perspective on the fan view. So is it making you feel inferior as a former player? Do you have that type of thought, or is it just, hey, dude, this guy, because I think we all can agree that MLS and MLS players are better as they continue to take steps forward. They get faster, they get stronger, the game is better, the product is better, all those things. But Messi is definitely, for me, a cut above still everybody at whatever he is, 35, 36. Do you see the same things? Do you see this guy performing at still an otherworldly level? Or you also were in a locker room with David and with Stevie and with some of these other guys, Bashti. Were they just as good, arguably, marginally, within the space that we're talking about?
No, I mean, you know, Dax made the great point, but I disagree. I think this is the same thing. This is the same model as the MLS has always done. The difference is, and why it is different. So it's a yes and no answer, and that's not straddling the fence. I
was going to say it is, but
no, it's a yes. It's a yes because they're doing the same thing. They want to put butts in seats. Okay, and in my opinion, there's always been three guys that will transcend this league, MLS. It was Beckham who did it first, and Jack said all the things. This league would not be where it is without him. And then Messi and Cristiano were the only two guys that I could picture before Messi came over that could do the same thing and create the same buzz as Beckham. It just so happens that he's doing it. So it is happening. Cristiano would have created the same exact buzz. As a fan perspective that you're asking, but I think those are the three guys. I mean, Zlatan was pretty freaking close to doing it just because he is who he is, but we saw still not the same buzz as
he's
Messi.
Not the same superstar buzz.
Not the same superstar, but he almost did because of who he was. Maybe
because of how good he was.
Maybe Ronaldinho could create some of that buzz, but all these other guys that we're talking about, we've had so many good players, so many superstars, Villa, Pirlo, Henry, Schweini, you guys, they couldn't do it. The reason that they couldn't do it is because the everyday MLS fan, there's more soccer fans now and knowledgeable, but they are not, those guys aren't world superstars. Those guys are superstars within our game, but they're not going to create the same buzz, right? But I still think that the MLS, this is the same old dog and pony show. They're gonna, every league would have liked to have Messi. And to your point, I think if Messi was on Barcelona right now, you think he wouldn't be doing this? He just won a World Cup and was player of the tournament, arguably. Right? So So I think that he would be doing it. And I know that he's still on this level, even though that he's 36 years old. And that is the difference. He's still so freaking good that every time I have to watch him play. I have to watch him play. If Miami is on, I am tuning in to see what this guy does because he's that special. This is watching Michael Jordan. Like, I remember my dad saying, like,
totally. This is watching Michael Jordan. That's a great reference.
You got to watch him. My dad said that, like, you have to watch him play because he's not going to play forever. And this is the best player of all time. And that's what we're experiencing right now. And I think it's really cool.
We have, I love to tell a story about the first practice when we went out with Stevie, and we just did Stevie comes to camp and we walk out to the fields, and I'm flying down the sideline, and it's just this simple, like almost up, back, and through, and then a switch across the field, right? So it gets dropped back into Stevie, and he hits this one-time ball. And I'm on my horse, like maybe like 75, 80%. And he takes a look at me, and he hits this like inside out, like beautiful bending ball. And I'm like, oh shit, this is going to hit me perfectly in stride. Lands on my foot. I take a good touch and whip in a good cross. And we score. And I'm jogging back, and I'm like, holy shit, that was incredible. I'm like, Stevie, that was incredible. Do that again. He looks at me, and he's like, yeah, obviously, right? Yeah. But literally, the next 12 balls are all exactly the same, completely in stride.
You want to know what's crazy, Gargs?
What?
I remember that ball.
Do you? I don't doubt it. I mean, it was like, I'm running down the side, because I think I actually may have served it to you.
I don't remember much.
But it was like one of those moments where it just, everything kind of slows down, and you're like, oh, this actually is a perfectly flighted ball, and everything. It just kind of was magical. It was a magical moment. But I bring that up.
Sitting there thinking, yeah, you've had players like Dax McCarty kicking you balls for the last 10 years. Like, obviously it's going to be better. All right.
Yeah. I'm saying this to say that I also feel like we saw some of Stevie's struggles too. Like, he came at the end of his career when he wasn't as athletically mobile as he was throughout his time with Liverpool, right? Like, his body had started to break down, and the league, as we well know, is super athletic, and it's super fast, and it's super physical, and it's all these things that probably didn't translate great for him to have as much success as he could have. We also probably didn't surround him with enough complementary pieces for him to be successful too. And this is Stevie in particular. But what I'm getting to is, I think that Messi is at a perfect point in his career alongside of the trajectory of MLS. And I feel like they are meeting in this like beautiful space, because Messi is still so freaking good that maybe he can't do everything that he would want to do in the Prem right this second, or for PSG or for Barcelona. But his ego is allowing him to be fed by the ability of MLS, because he can play in it and feels good about playing in it. But he is also still so good that he can do the shit that we are witnessing him do, and he is dominating the league. Like, it is at a perfect kind of tipping point on both sides. And I feel like it's different. I feel like the business model is very similar, Gordo, to what you're saying. But for whatever reason, this feels abnormal. This feels like it is a different page of everything that we've seen.
Well, can I also say, Gargs, to your point, like it's different because he cares.
I think part of it is he cares.
A lot of these guys that came in, it was up for debate whether they cared or not.
For sure. And you're right, Dax. I think he's but I think a lot of these guys are competitive to a point where they're like, oh, it's almost an easy out for them. As in, like, fuck, I can't be as successful as maybe I thought I was going to be in this league that is really difficult. And then it's, well, do I really fucking care? I've already had this ton of success that's here, which he has more than anybody has ever had, right? But I also feel like, I think where I'm trying to get to is his success and his still raw ability that allows him to be the absolute GOAT that he's been for as long as he has been. And now it's translating into Major League Soccer, into the current environment today, is what is feeding his feeling of caring. Does all that come together? Did I land that plane?
Yep. It makes sense.
I think it's different. And I think that we're seeing, I mean, Gordo, you referenced it earlier, but dude, they embarrassed Orlando 5-0, who we thought, a lot of us, I shouldn't say we, but I know I did for sure, I picked them to be one of the tops in the East. I definitely I wouldn't have characterized a 5-0 thrashing before we witnessed what we did. And Luis Suarez on one leg with 2 goals and an assist, right?
2 goals, 2 assists, I think.
2 assists. I mean,
I was driving my son's team. I was the chauffeur, and I looked back to one of the kids. I was like, "Hey, check that Miami score." And they're like, "Yeah, Suarez has got 2 goals and Messi's got 2 or something like that." And I was just like, I wanted to like slap myself on the top of the head and be like, "You dope! Like, why do you keep doubting the best player of all time? Like, what are you doing?" Of course they were going to win. And I thought Orlando was going to run all over them. I thought they were going to absolutely smash them and run them off the park because they're older or whatever. But we keep doubting this guy, and he just keeps proving to us and to me that he is the best of all.
I gotta say, man, I didn't watch the game. I saw the highlights. We played against Orlando in the playoffs, and we lost both games, the home and away, 1-0. And like, they were incredibly organized, incredibly aggressive. Like, and if you guys remember in Leagues Cup, when they played against Miami in Leagues Cup, like, they lost, but it was very questionable, and Orlando was the better team.
And they got under Messi's skin in that game. Remember that?
What? Some of the defending I saw,
horrific.
It should make you vomit in your mouth.
Yes,
and be like,
it did. I almost there. And I was going to bring this up because we'll move to the next topic here, because the next topic is Champions Cup, and Nashville is on their revenge tour against Miami, which you're not going to be able to participate. But my point is, you've seen it in person, right? And I do think that there is an aspect of witnessing the GOAT on the field in real time, and how much that significantly alters your ability to play, because there has to be a realness to it. I remember the first time I saw Beckham on the field, absolutely goes through me, 2 studs. And I was like, what the, and I turned around and I saw this just beautiful human with like flowing aura gold around his face. And I was like, oh my God, it's David Beckham. And it just completely unguarded me. And then I was like, oh, I actually want to kill you. Hold on. Let's get back to me wanting to kill you. There's gotta be that aspect to it, because now you have Busquets on the field, you have Suarez on the field, who, like, Suarez played against him when he was with Barcelona. That dude is a ghost. He is a ghost in the box. And for being the size of a refrigerator, it's pretty insane how he finds these just holes and pockets in and around what you would think to be decent defending, but they do. It seemed very much so that these guys walked onto the field and were just bewildered by what Miami is right this second.
I think there's 2 truths, is that Miami was very good and very sharp, and Suarez had his best game, clearly. Right. And I think Orlando was awful, and I think they were terrible, and I don't think they'll play that bad again the entire season. I think that's a one-off. I do still rate Orlando and Oscar Perejo. I think they're a very good team. But yeah, it was the perfect combination of one team with unbelievable players playing at their absolute maximum, and another team that's good playing their worst. So look, I'm not too worried about it. I think that's probably going to give Suarez some confidence that for other teams in the East, he probably didn't need, which is a little scary, because against the Galaxy, you're like, this guy's finished. And now he's walking around with 2 goals, 2 assists in one game, thinking, that's all right. I'll put some ice on the knee and I'll just keep going.
I can do this with one leg. Don't worry about it. You keep that leg. I don't need that one. So then, Dex, round of 16 Champions Cup, you're going to take Nashville over Miami, logically, right?
The only way I would do that is if I knew for sure that Sam Surridge and Hani Mukhtar were 100% fit, and even then, I don't know if I'd be taking my boys in Nashville. It's a big question mark. I watched a little bit of their game against Colorado after I got the boys down. It looked kind of more the same when Hani doesn't play, right? There's just a little bit of a
Schaffelberg running in the 9.
Well, yeah, but that was in the second half. So to start the game off, there's just some confusion as to how are we going to score goals? Yeah. How are we going to get this done?
I saw some crazy stat, or I heard some crazy stat during that game. I think Mukhtar has contributed like 107 goals out of 168 or something insane.
You build a team around great players, and with Nashville, who is very, very, very heavily reliant on him when he doesn't play, if you don't have a different way of playing or scoring goals, then it's difficult. And then take Sam Surridge out, who was starting to find some form as well. He was really fit. It doesn't surprise me that Nashville has struggled to score without those two. So look, with question marks surrounding their health and fitness and Miami playing the way they are, you'd be a little bit nutty to choose anyone but Miami to win. But crazier things have happened. I know for a fact that if there's anyone who can frustrate Miami and Messi, it's Gary Smith. Okay. That man can frustrate anyone and any team. Yeah. And Nashville will be well prepared to defend them and to play against them. And crazier things have happened in the soccer world. So I think Miami's probably too strong for Nashville at this moment in the season, but we'll see how Hani and Sam are. Gordo, we live in crazy times right now. What are things looking like in the real estate market?
Oh, Dax, you know that rates are always going to be the best with Synergy One lending, and those are always going to fluctuate. But one thing that never fluctuates, that's the service you get with Erin from Fikes Realty Group. She is the #1 agent I will refer all my clients to. She handles all the obstacles up front, really takes the stress out of any transaction and move that you have. Check out my girl, Erin Mishu with Fikes Realty Group at majorleague-realestate.com.
So we got the round of 16 for the Champions Cup. I'm oddly intrigued. I'm excited to watch Champions Cup soccer.
There's some really good matchups, by the way.
There are. So let me run through them. Herediano versus Robin Hood. You got Nashville, Miami, Columbus, Houston, Pachuca in Philly versus the Union, Tigres versus Orlando. That's a fun one. America versus Guadalajara, another really good matchup. You got the Revs versus Alajuelense from Costa Rica, and then Cincinnati, Monterrey. Gordo, which of those matchups jumps out to you?
Can you give me my options again?
No,
jeez, man.
There's an obvious answer here. Come on, Gordo. I know
you want to go. You want to go back to the Nashville, Miami.
I did forget. I did blank out. But dude, I want to see Tigres, and Monterrey was really good last year.
Tigres, Orlando,
and then Monterrey's playing who?
And then Monterrey plays Cincy, and Monterrey just signed who? Gordo?
Messi.
No.
Oh.
From Cincinnati. Brandon Vasquez. Brandon Vasquez is scoring goals
That's the
for
one
Monterrey.
I want to see.
That's the one you wanted to see.
I want to see that.
Gargs, hey, you know what, man? You just led a fish to water right there.
That's how my wife picks the colors on the wall. She makes them think it's mine. She's like, you like the green, right?
That's how you sprinkle the breadcrumbs, buddy.
That's
right there.
Yeah, dude, that's gonna be a really good game. Monterrey was sick last year watching them. So hey, Dax, catch me up. Are we doing the same thing? Are you guys taking a full break from MLS soccer, and you guys are gonna play the Champions Cup again? Is this
that's Leagues Cup?
I love you so much, Gordo.
What's this Champions Cup?
So Champions Cup
Champions League.
It's Champions League. It's just called Champions.
They rebranded
now.
Oh, they rebranded. They did that to us again.
Yeah, why not?
They did that to us again.
Why
rename it again?
All right,
why did they do that 1 year ago?
Yeah. All right, here we are.
You got it right, dude. Monterrey Cincy is easily the pick of all these matchups for me.
Yeah, that is the game.
Great game, two great teams. I mean, Monterrey is absolutely loaded.
Hey, has Brandon Vasquez scored since we talked about him last?
He's on fire. He just scored last night for them. He's been in great form. Cade Powell is in great form. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see where they're both at in a year. But I like us revisiting that little comparison we had. But Monterrey Cincy is a very good game. Brandon Vasquez adds another layer to it. But I think it's just two really good teams that are going to go head to head. And for me, the other pick is,
think about that though, Dax. You got Vasquez running against Miazga and Miles Robinson,
and
potentially DeAndre on the right.
Not to mention this other striker that Monterrey has, Bertarame, who I don't know if you guys have seen those.
Dude,
reports. He's insanely good, and reports out of Portland that they're going for him for a record.
They made a bid, didn't they? Make a bid?
$15 million.
Yeah.
This team is just stacked. It's crazy. It's crazy to me to think about Monterrey going and signing Brandon Vasquez for the amount they signed him for when they have a guy like Bertarame already on their roster. So 2 really good teams. I'm excited to see it. I think Tigres Orlando is going to be great as long as Orlando defends better than they did against Miami. That's going to be a fun matchup because there's a little bit of history there. There was a spicy CCL matchup. It was a year or 2 ago that Tigres narrowly won, I think. But it got heated, as things tend to do with Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
But that one is,
both my picks were right.
That's a fun. There you go. You did great, Gordo.
Thank you.
That's a fun. Those are fun matchups. I think the other ones, there's pretty clear favorites in the other ones. I still think. I think New England Pachuca is a little bit of a toss up, even though New England hasn't started the season great.
New England has Alajuelense, Pachuca, Philly.
Pachuca, Philly. Okay, that one is a little bit.
But that's a good matchup too. I mean, Philly does well in this tournament. They do well in the beginning of the season, and Pachuca's Pachuca. I think I want to say they
cracks, dude. Philly for me is showing a couple cracks this year. And
Dax, give me if there is a team, an MLS team, because we won last year, right, with Seattle, MLS
2 years ago. 2 years.
2 years ago. Give me the team out of MLS that can come through and win this year. Who's your front runner?
For me, it's Columbus.
It's Columbus.
They're going to beat Houston. Who does Columbus run into?
Columbus.
If they get through Houston, which I think they will.
Columbus would go Tigres or Orlando.
Okay, that's a tough matchup. Miami and Messi, they have Nashville, and then who is on the other side? I think it's Monterrey, right? Cincy.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Cincy, no, Nashville, Miami, and then Cincy, Monterey. Yeah. So
yes,
dude,
so
America and Guadalajara have the easiest road here, along with the Union.
So if you're going MLS team, I still think Columbus is the best MLS team in the tournament over Miami.
Columbus has to play. Okay, so say Columbus goes through, they have to beat Tigres or Orlando. And then they have to beat any of Monterrey, Cincinnati, Miami, or Nashville.
Just to get into the final.
Yeah, I still think the answer is Columbus, and the only reason I say that is because if they'll get through Houston and then they'll play Orlando or Tigres. I think they're better than Orlando. But if Tigres wins that series, I just think Columbus is too strong for Tigres, and I think that Gignac.
That's a big statement, Dax.
Yeah, I think Gignac is their best player. He's been their best player for a number of years now. He's a fantastic.
Who is also phenomenal.
He is phenomenal, but he's getting up there. He's getting up there in age, and so I don't think he plays every minute of every game anymore like he used to. I think he's starting to show some signs of slowing down. So if Columbus is going to get through a big,
what do you think? Just for shits and giggles, we should probably look this up. But what the difference is in payroll between Tigres and Columbus? Because it will be astronomical. Because they pay Gignac, but they pay everybody else too.
Yeah.
Hey, Gargs, do you remember which Mexican powerhouse they ran into in Leagues Cup? Was it Club America in the group stage?
That's a good question. I don't remember that. They ran
into one of the big Mexican teams in the group stage, and obviously they played them in Columbus, but man, they were so good. I remember watching that game and they were fantastic. So I don't think Columbus will be scared of these big Mexican teams. I think they're very, very strong. I don't know if the MLS team is going to win it this year. I think it's Columbus.
Okay. I mean, that's fair.
Gordo, I'm not even going to ask you who you think.
Why? Because I'm going to give a brilliant answer and you're going to say, wow, Gordo, that was surprisingly good from you.
Give it to me now that you have the bracket in front of you.
Dude, Columbus wasn't in the round of 16.
Okay, so who did they in Leagues Cup?
Yeah, in Leagues Cup. They were not in. It was Philly, Austin, Orlando, Vancouver.
Well, maybe I'm crazy.
LAFC. Either way, we'll have to cut this from the pod because you're clearly clueless here, Dax. But your point still stands. I think that you're probably fair to be buying into Columbus's stock right now. I mean, they're legit. They're a legit squad, and they probably could go toe to toe. Because here's the other thing that probably doesn't get talked about all that much. But I think the reality at this point is like there's real home field advantage for MLS clubs as well. Like the home field advantage, I think, feels different now as well. It's not just like, yeah, we have another game, because I think fans are more knowledgeable at this point. They know what the reality is for these good teams, these good clubs that are participating.
I'm going to interrupt you right now because I don't know what you were looking at, but I'm going to introduce you to a little app. Little app
what
that I
call
told Gordo to download called FOTMob, and I found it in about 10 seconds. Columbus beat Club America last year in Leagues Cup 4-1. You see that?
Oh, you're talking about Leagues Cup. I'm talking about Concacaf. They weren't in Concacaf. Round of 16.
I said Leagues Cup, and I said
Did you?
They beat a big Mexican powerhouse and they destroyed them. So
in Leagues Cup. Okay. I thought you were talking about Concacaf because that's the championship or the competition that we are referencing right now.
I understand why you would be confused, but you need to listen. I know you've got the AirPods.
Leave the confusion to me, Gargs. Can you? All right, thank you. That's my space.
We're keeping that in because I was right.
That is my role.
All right, that's fine. We'll leave it in, and they did beat America, so that's good to know. Which also wasn't played in Mexico, so it also can be thrown out the window because they don't get an away game.
Fine.
How about that?
Fair enough.
All right. Anyway, what I want to close on here, because I think that this has been a spirited debate. I do want to hear your guys' perspectives on some surprises through 2 weeks. I know that we've talked about this being maybe a small sample size, but I do think that you can also pick up some things that may be a little concerning for some teams, maybe also somewhat exciting for others. So if you have one club that's been a positive surprise for you and one club that has been almost a negative surprise, but also a disappointment, give me who they are. Give me your positive surprises, Dax.
Gordo can go first. I don't.
You want to go, Gordo? Give me.
When I go first, because I always pick his teams and he can't. He gets flustered and then he starts.
All right, that's fair. Gordo, give me who you are pleasantly surprised by after 2 weeks.
Well, let me just do this where I'm not going to talk about the Galaxy because all of our fans are going to be like, oh, Gordo only talked about the Galaxy. Galaxy's been just a pleasant surprise. We can talk about them all day. I did call it. We'll see if they can, continue.
You got a long road to get there, but it has been a very...
They look fantastic. See or no?
Agree. See.
I'm going to go Portland. I'm going to go Portland, not just because they're on the top. They're on the top of the West.
Okay.
I like the way they're playing, and I'm actually happy for them because that
guy Williams has been excellent.
That Williams has been on fire. This is like the trajectory. This is why I'll stop there. I'll digress. But all I'll say is, I'm just happy, dude, because the Portland, what are they called? The Timbers Army came out and they were trying to get Neville fired first. So I'm really happy to see him doing well, and my boy Ned Grabavoy is doing a fantastic job, which we give a lot of praise to Chris Albright. I know that he's learned a lot from Chris Albright. It's kind of like a protege mentor type of deal, and he's doing fantastic. I think like you mentioned before, I think they're trying to sign number 9, which they need, and when they do that, I think that they've put themselves in position to be true contenders this season. So that's my answer.
That's a good one.
And a disappointment.
No, let's stick with the pleasant. Let's stay on the positive here. We're staying on the positive train. Dax, who you got?
It's funny. Gordo, he looks at the table and he's like, "Oh, look who's at the top of the West."
I said not because that.
Big positive. Look at that.
I said not because that.
For me, I'm a little bit more nuanced, and I know that Portland has had both their games at home, so that's a big advantage. Obviously, when you're starting the season out,
plenty of teams have lost at home already. Okay, go ahead.
My surprise pick is going to be an actual surprise, impressive pick. For the reasons why I'll tell you in a second. I'm going CF Montreal. They have played both games on the road so far. They're sitting at 4 points. They drew Orlando in Orlando, and just beat Dallas in Dallas. Vegas odds on them getting any points out of either of those games were probably astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
So we played them in preseason, and I thought, okay, this is basically Columbus light in terms of how they play, which is not a surprise because of their assistant coach or their head coach, who was the Columbus 2 coach. So for me, it was just a question of, are they going to be able to execute some of the things that they're trying to do at the level that Columbus is? And obviously, I think it's going to take them a little bit of time, but they've been really impressive to start the season. I think they shipped probably, 50, 60 goals in MLS last year. And to go on the road and play 2, I think, very good teams and only concede 1 goal in both those games, I think that speaks to how organized they are. I think that speaks to how much focus Courtois put on, defensive organization in preseason. And your guys' boy, Joseph Martinez, off the mark, game winner in Dallas.
Yeah.
Looking like a better pick than my boy Zardes right now. And Mason Toy, who hasn't been on the bench for
early Golden Boot candidate.
I'm wondering where my boy Mason went. I'm upset about it. So for me, CF Montreal, pleasant surprise. And then I'm going to give a shout out to my former team. I bet you guys don't know which one I'm going with, but
not Chicago.
No, DC United. DC United. I had a lot of question marks about DC United coming into the year, and result at home, great win against
New
England, but New England got an early red card, right? So you're thinking maybe this is fool's gold. They go on the road in Portland, and they're down 2-0 with no Benteke, and they come back and tie the game 2-2, and actually probably should have won the game in the end with Gordo's pick.
With my pick.
So I'm impressed with what DC is doing. I think Lassane has come in there and given them a renewed or refreshed energy, some good ideas. I think they're going to be a little bit of a wild card in the Eastern Conference. I'll be curious to see what I don't know how bad Benteke's injury is, but I'll be curious to see what DC United does in the next couple of weeks because they've started the season off very well. So those are my 2 surprises.
Those are good. I'll stick Western Conference, and I do need to say, because I did not think Cincinnati was going to be as successful early this season as they have been, and they've taken what they did at the end of last season and stepped right into this year. And I think it'll be fun to see what they do, especially the moves that they're making. But I'm going to go Minnesota United. Minnesota United winning in Austin, a tie against Columbus in Columbus. You got a new GM, you got a new head coach. I did get to watch them in person a couple times last summer. I think Pookie is legit. I like Flangwane is.
I like your pick, Gargs, and by the way, they've gotten these results without Flangwane,
yep.
And no Reynoso as well.
And no Reynoso, who I think is arguably the most talented player in the league. Right. I absolutely love watching him play, and I think that Pookie was a great addition, which there was a big question mark on that, whether he could actually do it here in this league. So you know who I also love? I love their outside back, Taylor, who's like I want to say he's like a fringe supplemental draft guy, which no disrespect to him whatsoever. I actually just love that he's on the field contributing in so many different places.
You see a lot of yourself in him.
I do, and I appreciate it. And I love it. He's probably getting paid $12,000 too.
We're all a little bit vain.
Pay that man.
Yeah, you love yourself. It's great.
They wouldn't even announce their coach until what? 2 days ago.
Last week. I feel like last week they announced him, right? So I do like to see that. And I think that fan base, that organization they would do well with a winner up there. So it would be nice to see them be relevant and be successful. So those are my positives. Disappointments. Gordo, I'll let you start again. Who do you got? And I'll limit the words here.
What? I'm not the limit the words guy on this podcast.
That was a thinly veiled shot at your boy Dax.
All right. You know who I'm surprised by?
We would love to know. That's the question.
That was the question. It was a simple question.
I think we talked about it last, and I'm just going to say this.
Say it. Ready?
I'm gonna go ahead and say the Sounders.
Say what you need to say.
I'm gonna go ahead and say the Sounders. I know they've been missing some pieces, but I do feel like they got question marks as far as the new 10, where he's gonna play, exactly what, I mean, I don't like the way it feels when I watch him. I won't say it. And so just let me speak. Jeez, you guys are awful. And so yeah, I'm gonna go with Sounders. Done. Okay, go ahead and give your long-winded answers. I gave you a couple of 10 extra seconds. Good.
Did you? I don't think you did. Dax, who you got?
All right. I'm going to go John Mayer style. I'm going to say what I need to say. Like
there you
go. Austin, I don't get it. I don't understand why they aren't better than they are. And part of it, I'm willing to chalk up to Drusy being injured to start the season, but they just don't look like the team that I saw 2 years ago. And I know, I'm grasping at straws here going 2 years back. I just figured I really do rate Josh Wolf as a manager. And I do think they have some really good pieces. I'm just kind of struggling to understand why they aren't better than they are. I think they've been shut out in back-to-back games now. Maybe they scored in the last minute against Minnesota. They lost 2-1, but I'm just, I'm thinking that they need to turn things around pretty quickly in Austin, because we know that they have a new technical director, a new GM in, and Josh Wolf is not his guy. And so, I think that there's some pressure there in Austin right now to turn it around. And the other team is NYCFC. This team, I can't understand how a team has the resources that they have with City Football Group. And it seems like they bring in a multi-million-dollar young player every transfer window. And they just don't seem to be getting anywhere. I think they've been pretty average for a year and a half now. So, started the season with 2 losses, 1 at home, 1 on the road. Obviously losing in St. Louis isn't like the worst thing in the world, but I'm struggling to see many bright spots with NYCFC either. So those are the two that I'll go with as being a little bit disappointing this year.
Yeah, and I saw that. I saw the first half in person in St. Louis this past weekend, and St. Louis dominated, I would say, most phases of that game. And it didn't really feel close. City, I don't know, man. To your point, I feel like there's a lot of young kids out there that don't really have a real idea. It doesn't seem like there's a singular thought out there.
There's a lot of talented individual pieces that it's not coming together.
It's not there's not cohesive, and it didn't really feel like it was close to being cohesive either, if I'm being completely honest.
What do you got, man? Any teams left?
San Jose, a little disappointing for me. I feel like San Jose, I love Luch, and I thought that they would have come out maybe a little bit quicker, having a home game and getting pounded by the Galaxy at home. It did
seem like they weren't even in the game.
They didn't. They did not seem like they were in the game, and that's not emblematic of a Luchi Gonzalez side. And I also think that, having played for a year in San Jose, Gordo, you played there for longer than I did, but I know that a loss to the Galaxy does not sit well in San Jose land. And that's something. It didn't
seem like much fight. It didn't seem like a Classico, did it?
No, it did not. It really did not.
I'm trying to tell you guys, we had this debate, and I'm telling you that it matters to the fans. I don't think these new players really recognize that as the big one.
It didn't look like it. It didn't look.
So who's the big one for San Jose?
It is the Galaxy. I'm more talking about Trafico. Sorry.
Yeah. The Galaxy, they're a pleasant surprise. That's for sure. That Painstill he's legit, man. He can flat out fly, but he made San Jose's backline look amateur, pedestrian. And that's something that I think it's been disappointing for me to see, 2 games, 2 losses, especially with a big one, as big as that game is in San Jose, to lay an egg early. Not great. Listen, fellas, great episode. That was good. That was fun. I enjoyed it. A lot of intelligence coming out of Dax. Gordo, you were present, which was a big plus as well.
He said what he needed to say.
I was early.
You were early. You were early.
Slow dancing in a burning room over here.
Oh, well, listen, for those of you that caught up, that was good. Glad to have you. And we will see you back out on the pitch next week. Let's cover some specific games. We're gonna toss it out on socials. You're gonna cover maybe one or two in particular. Dax, I want you to do the same. I know you got a game to play, but I would love for you to do the same, and I'll do it as well. So
Awesome.
Tune back in across the socials and check us out, and also drop some comments about your club. We appreciate it. Thanks for the support.